Hi, and welcome to the next episode of Beyond the Bubble. I have today a special guest, longtime friend, Helen, who's a coach with a very colorful, interesting life story and a lot of insights about asking questions, about values, and many other topics that we're going to talk about. And I want to make sure to mention that you are welcome and you're encouraged to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet done so. And also you can turn on the little alarm bell so you get immediately notified with new episodes. And I hope you share it with your friends and make sure that the podcast spreads to everyone who would like to listen to it. So with that, Helen, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for asking. I'm really honored. I'm really honored.
And how did you get into coaching?
Well, I had an epiphany at about 43. And I had been on a journey since I got divorced. I was divorced at 36. So I was in Belgium with 2 kids, kind of wondering what to do. And so there was some work I did around what is love? What is a relationship? How do people choose somebody well? What memo did I miss on that one? Because, and of course, and so there was that thing. At 43, it suddenly occurred to me that of all the problems, misunderstandings, and challenges I'd had in my life, there was a common denominator. Do you know what it was?
I don't dare to guess.
It was me.
Ah, okay.
I had been present at every single one of those problems, bad conversations, broken relationships, misunderstandings. Of course, I also was present to the good things, and it suddenly occurred to me that while I had always been blaming circumstance or the person or a freak accident or, someone was late or whatever it was, I had always been present. And that was a real bombshell to me at 43, that I had missed that it was also my fault. I was at some, goodness knows how much it was my fault. And then in that thinking, I know exactly where I was in the house. And, that hurt. And then I realized that, well, then, if it was my fault, that means I could have done something differently. And that actually, so what could I have done differently? What can I do differently next time? And it literally launched this obsession with reading books, or in my case, listening to books. And I was just so hungry to find out what's the secret that I never got on how to make things easier. And it was particularly, I also noticed that I was having problems with certain clients, conversations I was super uncomfortable with, that they might get emotional with the work I was doing at the time. This was that was 40 when I was 43. So I did a lot of reading, and a lot of reading. I started doing mindfulness and anything, right? And then at 47-ish, I think I'd left ZN at that point. I'm getting my dates wrong, I think, but let's say sometimes in my mid-40s, I was really struggling with certain clients, and that they would have these emotional meltdowns in front of me because of I was doing brand storytelling with them, and it was all very personal to their brand and their company, and they'd created it. And I was just like, oh my God, get me out of this room. I mean, I felt very responsible, but I didn't know how to drive the conversation forward. And I was telling a friend, and they said, oh, you should go on a coaching course. I'm like, why would I do that? I don't want to become a coach. I'm like, no, they'll help you ask better questions. I'm like, questions? Why do I need questions? I need a fix. I need to fix this thing. Yeah, no, but you'll be able to kind of drive the conversation forward. I'm like, okay. So somebody mentioned a course they were going to take, and I went on it. Of course, it wasn't actually a coaching course. It's because you have to do so much work on self. So in fact, the first 4 days was the most depressing 4 days I've ever had. It was really difficult, really uncomfortable, because it pushes you out of your comfort zone. But then I realized very, very quickly, I didn't know how to listen. I'd been a consultant and I'd been on transmit mode for so long because you get paid to talk. You get paid to walk in a room and give us, I'm listening a little bit. Okay, I'm going to bring this drawer out and I'm going to give you this and I'll give you a bit of that as well. So I realized I had no muscle to really listen, manage myself in the process of going, oh, I want to say something, and just be with somebody. They get you to a point where you're not even supposed to speak for 24 hours, 12 hours, I think it is. Amazing experience. Have a thing of silence. Unbelievable. So that's how I got into coaching. Was I was literally trying to have manage my anxiety around certain conversations with clients, and then in the process learn all these tips and tricks that then my clients would come to me and I kept repeating the same stuff. I'm like, hey, you should try this. You should try this. And of course, coaching isn't about telling, but at some point I could either sit there for 10 sessions and they could pay me for 10 sessions, or I could ask them if they were open to actually trying out a tool that I found quite useful. So I do cheat. I'm not a 100% pure coach. Forgive me. And yeah, so that's how I got into it, is really self-preservation. I was really struggling. And I actually see that people struggle in exactly the same way. Doesn't matter how much education you have. We don't know how to manage these particularly delicate types of conversations. I'm not saying I'm great, but I mean, I practice.
But that's the whole point. I think that at the core, the fundamental of it is asking better questions. A good question, I think it's worth better than 1,000 good answers, because it opens the door to a new way of thinking, a new way of seeing things. So it starts you down a path instead of being stuck in a certain thing. And also that a question invites you to explore, the other person to explore, while you tell something, they're not necessarily going to agree with it, not necessarily going to internalize it. They might, but chances are they won't. Whereas a question is a non-violent, meaning non-confrontational, and invites you to consider different possibilities.
Yeah, and I think I hide behind questions these days. I notice it's much easier to be where you are and to just listen and ask questions than is to respond in a way that is useful, balanced, honest, right?
It's much more vulnerable position to have to answer, for sure.
Yeah. One thing it's a real game changer, and I just want to share it, is when people, ask a good question. So for me, that would be a really painful thing to say to me, because I'm like, what's a good question? And how do you, and there's just one simple trick, is flipping the why. Why do you do it that way? To a what? What's important about it, you doing it that way? Why do you do it that way? There's a judgment. I'm not saying anything. Why do you do it that way? I've actually got a better way. I didn't say that.
Yeah.
As opposed to just pure curiosity of what's important to you about doing it that way. Because there's probably a really good reason why you're doing it that way, but I just can't see it. So the idea is you ask a question that you genuinely don't know the answer to. The why question, you have an answer. The what question forces you into a much more curious question, and it's way more respectful. The why question would trigger a fight, flight, freeze response, potentially, if you have lower trust. A what question, if you genuinely ask it, will get people thinking. So just want to share that because I think everyone should know.
It's a very good one, and it reminds me that when you ask a why question, you still can, but it's just so delicate how the tone of voice that you're using comes across, because you can say, why did you do that? Right? That's a very different
Why
question.
do you do that?
Why did you do that? Right?
But hopefully it landed in a trusting way.
I didn't know the theory around it. It's just my understanding was, if I ask a question with the what. And again, without knowing the why and the what distinction, but to say, what made you do that? It's a better formulation than saying, why did you do that?
Yeah, tone is still super important.
Yeah.
And listening, of course, to the answer. People ask questions and they don't hang around to listen to the answer, or they interrupt you. Oh, it's so annoying.
Yeah.
So annoying. I do it too. I'm guilty as charged, but I think that I really... And I think it's important to call it out, particularly for dominance. So there's 4 types of people come in 4 colors, and we have a mix of all. But there's certain types who are much faster, think fast, speak fast, take a lot of space. And then there's a good percentage of people in the same conversation who are listening and being respectful. It is just part of who they are. And those dominants think it's silence is agreement. And it's like, no, they're just waiting for you to stop talking. Emotions are just chemicals, right? Emotions are just keeping us in status quo. We have, as humans, put labels to them. There's only like 7 or 8 core emotions. I can't remember them. What have we got? There's 2 positive ones, which is happiness and love. And then about 5, let me see if I can get them. Fear, sadness, mourning, disgust, and hate. There might be another one. That's enough. And so you can then nuance them out a little bit. But I love it with my clients to get them. They say, oh, I'm feeling really anxious. I'm feeling really this. They're not actual feelings. They're labels that we now use very commonly. I feel really bad. Bad's not a feeling. It's a word that we use. And so then I give them the list, and I force them to choose 1 or 2. And they don't want to say, I feel fear.
Why?
Because fear sounds pathetic and weak, and it shows that it's a scary word to admit. And there might be fear, and there might be some anger there. And it's because they want something more socially acceptable.
So basically they are filtering and screening their own emotions and only picking up the ones that are socially acceptable instead of being true and truthful and say, well, this is what I feel.
Well, put it even further, and I'm guilty as charged, I actually find it really difficult to even name my emotions, because I will cut emotions, my head to my heart to go, what am I actually feeling? So emotions, I was saying, they're just chemical reactions happening in the moment to keep our body in status quo, right, into homeostasis. And they are, and so they're constantly changing. It's like the clouds in the sky. And we, for some reason these days, think that happiness is a state to get to. But it's just a cloud that passes by, and really to get to that, but behind it is the blue sky, which is just sort of being. But yeah, I mean, to feel happiness, you also need to understand sadness. You need to feel love. You also, if you allow yourself to feel love, then you probably also allow yourself to feel hate. You can't just have the positive ones. And I think that people don't know what they're feeling, and they can't name them, the real feelings. People don't want to know what they're feeling because it's quite scary to admit that I feel fear. When they go, yeah, I'm really frustrated with so-and-so, but it's like, okay, what's the emotion behind that? Well, I actually feel fear that person's going to give a bad name to me, and that's going to impact my social status, how I show up, right? It's just fear, and fear is a very vulnerable thing to say. You never hear people say that. I mean, you mentioned it, but it's quite unusual. They'll externalize it, or they give a fake feeling, which is, I feel. What's a good one? I feel ignored.
That's not a feeling.
I feel intimidated.
Yeah.
You have those faux feelings you have to have someone else in the scene to make for that to happen. But real feelings, there is nobody else needed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I fascinating. I actually don't talk about feelings very much, but it's something I do check in with clients because it's a really good exercise. It's part of the EQ, emotional intelligence. Starting point is notice what you notice. And it also changes constantly. It's just and we then put too many interpretations, how I'm feeling, it's anxiety. Oh my God, I need to go and see a therapist because I feel anxiety. And it's like, no, you're just feeling right now a little uncomfortable, quite rightly, because you're in an uncomfortable situation. But it too shall pass.
I very much agree with that because of, like you say, that a lot of feelings get sugar-coated or packaged in a way that me as my self-image is that I'm a strong person and I'm socially accepted and blah, blah, blah. So therefore, I try to minimize that fear. Because if I feel fear, how can I be a strong person if I'm so fearful? That's a full contradiction. So either one is not true. So I'd rather keep my self-image of being the strong person and then minimize the fear and try to give it names or put it in a box, which is less intense.
And fix it.
And fix it.
Fix it. Fix it as fast as possible. Yeah. So I was listening to some of your podcasts and I heard you had a burnout. Now, I thought that was really interesting because you're somebody, I've always seen you, you're strong. You're the strong, calm, broad shoulders, nothing seems to rattle you. And I thought that's very interesting because I wonder how thin you stretched yourself by, I can handle that. I'll do that. I'll set up that company. I'll make that company work. And I think that perhaps one of your strength and also your things that is maybe part of your life to work on is to accept help or say, I can't cope, or to say no, right? But it's a story that we all have those stories that I think you can either just ignore it and fight it all through your life, or you can go, wow, where does the hero, it's the hero of the emotional drivers. I think you are the hero, which is a strong, stoic, calm, brilliant in a crisis. But that takes a huge toll because it's not that you're not feeling anything. It's just that you don't want to be seen to be, if you crack, what will happen? The whole world will fall down. And you're holding it together as it feels like you are. I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, I think that's true.
And so it's to recognize we don't need to talk about why it's there. Probably whether it's your dad or something happened, or we adopt these strategies to survive, and then they become one of the only strategies we're using to navigate all situations. And people love you for it too. And so you have to do it even more. But then, sometimes when the going gets tough, it's vulnerable. It's really hard to that strategy of being the hero suddenly stops working.
I think it also has a lot to do with perfectionism, because that's a very rigid mindset, and I'm guilty as charged, where if something is not perfect, again, not in a ontological sense, but really in its place and well configured and everything works as it should, unless you get to that point, which obviously is impossible, then there is something off, and it's anxiety inducing, and we need to work on it and need to push it. So that's not a helpful way of being. I recognize that.
Yeah. So on my website, because I did a talk the other day to a bunch of wonderful women, and there's a quiz you can take, and I put it on my website, and it's emotional drivers. And there's these 5 emotional drivers. One's the hero, one's the perfectionist, one's the people pleaser, guilty. One's the hard worker, also guilty. And the other one is, I can't remember, there's always one I forget. So the perfectionist is the safety-seeking behavior. If I get it all right, they won't get me. Yeah. If it's all... And either it's a positive thing because perhaps you were brilliant at school and you got rewarded. Oh, my God, you're so good. Well done, son. Right? And so it's like, oh, I want more of that. I got recognized for being smart. Yeah. Or it was because of an environment where you got punished for not doing it right. And so as a child, they're all things that we develop as children to keep ourselves safe and belong.
Mental frameworks.
Is that what you call them?
That's what I would call them, yeah. It's maybe not even mental framework, kind of deeply held convictions.
So so what's really funny about any of these? Oh, speedy is the other one. Fast. Do it fast. So I'm really working hard on people pleaser. I think that's kind of now toned down, but I'm absolutely a hard worker and I do things fast. But what I recognize is that I feel something in my stomach. So a situation happens and it's not a mental framework because I'm not thinking. I feel uncomfortable, so I have to take action. So in your case as a hero, it's, I've got this, or leave it with me. All right. In my case, it's like, I'll do it fast. I'll work tonight. I'll get it done. You'll have it 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. I probably work till 4 o'clock in the morning to get it done. But I will never let you down in that respect. And it's not perfect, but it's my safety seeking, if I'm honest.
Together with the people pleaser.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's insidious, people pleaser.
So these 5 they can exist all together in a person, can they?
Yes, of course. So hopefully the idea is they're there and you answer all these questions just to notice. It can give you a ranking of how strong it is. And really just with that awareness, then it's just to start noticing what you notice when you're in a meeting. If there's a tension building, are you the person who comes in trying to sort of, yeah, don't worry, I'll fix it, people please, sort of, or are you wanting to rush through the meeting? Are you wanting to rush through your whole life? Everything has to be done fast. My husband's like that. Everything has to be done. It's immediate, has to be done now. And it's if he was honest with himself, he would, it doesn't have to be all done now, fast. But it's an
urge.
It's an urge that starts inside. It's got nothing to do with other people.
So what's the right way? You need to calibrate these at the right level, balance them in the right quantity?
Yeah, I think it's really becoming a self-observant of noticing, am I working all night because it really is life and death? Or am I doing it because I just don't want anyone to criticize me, or I don't want to get into trouble, and I know I can do it. I know I can work all night. Is it really necessary, or are you doing it to get an external recognition? Is it? Do you know what I mean? You've just got to start being a little bit more self-aware, which is the step 1 of emotional intelligence. Just notice notice self, notice what I'm doing, notice what other people are doing. Maybe help them say, do you really need to work every weekend? What's it for? Am I answering the question?
It does. And when you go back to that question of what's it for, what comes to mind is purpose. And how do you help your clients or yourself finding that purpose?
Oh, it's such a horrible question.
Oh, thank you.
Who said we were supposed to have purpose? This thing that, people are looking for it. They're kind of looking under the sofa and trying to find their purpose and speaking to...
Is meaning a better word?
Yeah, so I am being a bit cheeky, but it's just that I feel that I think we've lost a sense of belonging and purpose within the family unit, within the tribe, within the community, that we are part of something bigger, right? That's how it used to be. And now we've become a very individualistic society, so I am the community, myself, me, myself, and I. And so each person is looking for their meaning. And then you see on social media that somebody has their purpose and everyone should have their purpose. We're all special people. So what I would love to say is that purpose is in the little things. And it's really not about purpose. I focus on values. And not even just the values, because you can choose, there's hundreds of values. You can just choose 5 or 10. But if you do that, if you go on the internet right now and do the top 250 values, you will unconsciously choose socially acceptable values. So I have this beautiful exercise I do with clients, which helps people find their true values. And I won't say it because it will ruin the thing, but
can you give a teaser? Or?
I was thinking about this because I thought it would come up, and I was thinking I think it would be a really nice thing to actually make that. I think everyone should know their true values, and so I'm thinking of putting that on as a sort of every 6 months free exercise. You can do it online with me live, and that people show up and actually just invest an hour to identify their true values. Because once you identify your true values, which have nothing to do with sustainability or, all the stuff that people will probably say about career or whatever, they're much more beautiful and fundamental. And the idea with these values, like you mentioned courage, and if courage is one of your true values, then the idea is that when you have a challenge, then you pick up one of your values and you say, okay, if courage was a person, what would courage tell me to do right now? And I tell you what, it just wipes the floor with confusion and what to do next, because we're intellectualizing it and we don't have any anchor to guide us in that moment. But I find so one of my values is courage, humor.
Is humor a value?
For me, it's fun.
Fun, okay.
Humor, laughing, just don't take it too seriously. And I perhaps lack a bit of that sometimes. And so the other one is groundedness. So for example, if I have a problem, and I can see myself overthinking this, and then I'm justifying what I did, and at some point I go, okay, just pick a value, doesn't matter which one it is. If it's groundedness, if groundedness was a person, what would groundedness do? Like being practical, down to earth. If you were down to earth, what would a down to earth approach be here?
It's like pragmatic.
Right, exactly. And then it's just obvious. It's the answers just come in front of me. And then, of course, I have the choice. It's a conscious choice. Am I going to go and do it?
That's where the courage comes back.
That's where the courage comes back. And courage generally is the one that drives me. People are so smart in this town. They're so educated. And yet many, and my clients are super smart people. I mean, they've got masters, they've got their PhDs, and yet they just lack these beautiful fundamentals which you should have taught at school. Values, how to operate through them, sense of, there's many things that people don't learn at school, but yeah, so values is a really great guiding light. If you don't know where you're going, at least you know I call them my pilot lights, like an aeroplane's landing. So I don't know what my future looks like. But if I can keep within those values that are mine, and they're my true values, they're not ones I've picked from a piece of paper, then at least I know I'm doing the best I can, and I'm going in a direction that feels good to me, that feels like courage to apologize, courage to sound wrong, courage to show up, right? So
those are very, very important ones. For me, honesty is a very important one. It's perhaps one of the most important ones, or has become. I don't think it used to be, but has become. And I think honesty also comes with a lot of courage. because sometimes you just don't want to say something to a person, which doesn't mean to hurt them. It doesn't mean to package it in a way that is not helpful, but still honesty in a situation. But again, it's not just verbal, because you go on the train and there's nobody to verify if you bought a ticket, and you still buy a ticket. That's the kind of honesty where you say, okay, even if no one's checking, I still do the right thing to the degree I can. And I think it's a difficult one, but to me, it has become very important. And also integrity, again, comes with honesty, I think, to a large degree, to stay within your values. I think that's ultimately what integrity is. And even if there's a conflict and you need to call it out, then you do call it out. And again, I'm not saying I live up to these all the time, but at least there's a struggle. There's an effort to go to that direction.
That's right. That's right.
And I think also justice,
Ooh.
fairness, justice. Maybe fairness is a better word. Fairness and justice, and that has also become very important for me to see. And sometimes it's like I had a situation recently where it wasn't a conflict, but let's say a tense situation with a person, and it was the other person was basically trying to manipulate me, and there was truth in what he was saying. So I tried to be fair towards the situation and to assess even myself, to say, well, I need to concede whatever is true from what the other person is saying, but it wasn't coming from a good faith argument. It was a manipulation to turn me towards his perspective. So what I'm saying is, it's sometimes unhelpful in a situation when the other person is not a good faith actor. I'm too critical towards myself and say, well, the other person has some truth, but they're not saying it like a therapist or someone who's really a good faith actor who says, hey, I'm just reflecting to you what I observed so you can think about it, so you can eventually improve or try to fix those things that you did wrong. But no, when the other person comes with an agenda, that's a very different story. And it leads to a lot of confusion in a situation like that, because I'm not being, in a good faith way, being ushered towards betterment, but I'm basically being weakened. The other person is trying to weaken me and find my vulnerabilities to turn me around towards their agenda.
Yeah, and I mean, I find that quite difficult. I find that quite difficult when there's you call it a bad faith. So it's very difficult to have a conversation with somebody who actually doesn't want to have a conversation with you. They want to win. So yeah, the idea is there's two types of conversation. One is power over, I want to win, or a conversation is about connection, and it's about building trust and working together. And yeah, sometimes you find yourself in a conversation. I have been in conversations where facts weren't important. Well, we could just make up facts. And if you bring the facts back on the table, that person wasn't interested.
Or misrepresent it or interpret it in a light that's going to be detrimental to you so they can win.
You can't interpret a fact. We shouldn't. I mean, a fact is a fact. And if it's a fact, then I also can be wrong. But but what I found funny was that, I help people have better conversations in the work environment. That's what I do these days, right? And I didn't mean to do that. It was because I was on my own journey as a people pleaser, having no skills whatsoever. The conversations were a mystery to me, that sometimes they were great and sometimes they weren't so great. And so just happened to go on this coaching program completely for myself to be a better consultant, and realized that I was learning tools that it would be so useful for other people. But when it comes to people who don't want to listen, it's very difficult. And I think you just need to recognize it for what it is. And even perhaps just stop the conversation, because there's no point. They're not listening.
Yeah, but what do you do? In a workplace, there's someone in that situation, and you come in to help them have better conversations with their staff or with their team members. and they're not willing to listen.
So it's not a one-off conversation. It's a, there isn't one quick fix. I'll be honest with you. I wish there was. If I would found myself in your situation, I would try different approaches. It's important to understand perhaps what their drivers are, what's important, not emotional drivers, but it sounds like status, or maybe it's safety. Maybe you speaking to him is threatening him. All right? So maybe to recognize what is making him not listen. All right? So and we're also assuming, I'm so going to get into trouble for saying this. Let's just assume he's within the normal range of personality. Okay, so I'm assuming also that
No disorder.
No massive disorder like a psychopath or a sociopath.
Yeah.
That's the word. So within the range, and we're all on that spectrum, right? So let's assume he's normal. And
He, she.
Let's say it's a he, just to make my life a little easier. And so, yeah, I'd say it's a little bit like a doctor, that you're first of all saying, I wonder what's making him feel threatened, or I wonder what's stopping him from listening. Threatening is a judgment. I wonder, is he feeling threatened? That if he's told to do something differently, that makes him wrong, and wrong is bad. And so, right? So, and you go, I have actually noticed that he's quite defensive in these particularly in public. Well, maybe I should take him to one side and maybe just be a bit more curious about his ambitions or how does he see things? Because he's also got a worldview. He's also got a personality. He could be more dominant. He could be more compliant, which is order, like an accountant. Everything has to be done in a certain way and very quite rigid. So, yeah, I would, if I was in your shoes, I would be curious about personality, about what's important to him. What does it mean when he gets feedback? And how could I have a conversation with him that would help him explore, start to maybe be a little bit curious about, if he's ambitious, for example, then could I acknowledge his ambition, right? There's nothing wrong with being ambitious, and perhaps somehow drive the conversation around for you in order to achieve your ambition, which is great, and you've got great vision, you're going to need more help. And in order to get help, you need to build trust. I'm not saying you literally say this conversation, but you'd want to be getting him curious about, that's interesting. I notice people are quite resistant sometimes to me. Or have you noticed that when you say that, people do that? Yeah, I have, but that's just people. And say, well, it is just people. But wouldn't it be lovely that people felt more aligned with you? Right? Perhaps you could you're just trying to see if you could get him curious about how could I get more done through other people in a way that they feel inspired to work with me or with him. But it's a journey, right? It's not a one-off conversation. And I think people think that conversation is you get it all done in one go, but one conversation might actually take several months, and you've got phases of a conversation. And so you first want to ask, is he open? Is there a conversation for possibility or curiosity even?
So is it about power? Is it about winning and being above and winning in every sense? The argument, the position? Or is it about connecting and there's trust? And for that trust to be built, I think it's extremely, well, for both situations actually, is extremely helpful to have a foundational level of connection. And I point back to the emotions that you spoke about. That connection happens when the other person feels understood, and being understood is by me trying and hopefully finding those deeper layers that drive you. And I verbalize it, and I manage to verbalize that what I hear you say is, or it seems to me that it's really important for you that your colleagues recognize you. What I understand from you is that you have ambition in the company, and you really would like to get ahead, and you feel that others are hindering you because they're not complying with your request. Is that a correct understanding? Right? Like this sort of phrasing, it dissolves a lot of the resistance, because the other person says, "Oh yeah, that's like, I feel heard, I feel seen, I feel understood."
That's right. The nonviolent needs, and I mean, nonviolent communication was a game changer for me. So I did the coaching, and then I went.
Rosenberg,
yeah, and then I went on various different courses to really become a practitioner of that. And it's just so lacking in our day-to-day conversations. It really is the magic key. If it's so simple and it's so complicated, to do it in the moment is really, really hard.
That's the hard part.
Oh,
the theory is super easy.
The theory is super easy, but yeah, to make that a habit, and the language is weird. It's odd. Oh, I see you have a need for connection. I'm like, what? Why are you talking to me like that? So I think it's quite to even find your own language to talk in a needs level, as opposed to what we all do is talk in strategy, right? I want X. And then it's like, well, I want X. I want Y. And so then you have a battle of strategies. But with the nonviolent communication, you actually just, okay, can we just park the strategies? I need this, you want that. And then look at the needs level of, I need, perhaps in your case, order. And he might need to be seen, right? And you're just talking. If you can recognize each other's needs, like, okay, so if I need order, and I see that you need to be seen, how can we find a way forward that we can get both those needs met?
And what's the solution for that? Is it finding...
talking to each other and finding a way forward that actually helps both of you get your needs met. And if you don't like the first one, you say, okay, and what else? And what else? Okay, I see that fits your needs. I'm still not seeing how that fits my need for order or safety or ease. And there is a conversation.
Are people able to have that conversation in a conflictual situation at the workplace?
People need to have that conversation. People don't have that conversation. People are just throwing strategies at each other. And Rosenberg would call it a tragic strategy. So just a very simple example, if I get wound up or stressed, I think about having a cigarette. That's a tragic strategy because there are so many other options. My need is for ease or freedom or, ease and peace.
So you mean as a coping strategy of sorts? Or?
I've just gone for one thing. And I use that as a simple example because I recognize it. We all can recognize that we have a coping mechanism, a strategy to deal with a need, but we're not actually listening to our needs. But yeah, so at work, here in Brussels, and everywhere really around the world, people are just talking at each other and not listening to each other.
Do you feel that it's really lacking, the desire or the ability to understand the other?
Yes. 100%.
Is that coming from ideological differences? Is it coming from just a lack of ability to truly understand? Because I might have the desire, perhaps the ability to truly understand another person with a very different worldview, but I have no interest in actually endorsing that worldview. But I think it's already a helpful thing, I guess.
But just by listening, that's a beautiful example. So if I listen to you, that means I've agreed with you. No. I hear you. I don't understand that, but I hear you. I hear this is what's important to you. and tell me more about that. What does that look like on a date, right? That sense of curiosity. But we have learned in the Western society, I don't think it's the same in other cultures, that if I give you the time of day, if I give you airtime, then I've lost. So it's just a battle of, okay, I know I have to be respectful, so I will do my best to let you finish your sentence. Haven't really been listening because I've actually been formulating my response, so I then throw you back my response and we're just talking at each other. And in our education system, as far as I can still see, very little is done for young people to learn how to listen objectively, like a Quaker, and not take it personally. To be able to hold a thought, an idea, and not get emotionally evolved in that idea, and to go, oh, okay, so you believe in, you're pro-life, for example. Okay, right? I mean, I may not be.
Meaning opposing abortion.
Abortion, right? So let's say that was but it's respectful for me to really, because you're not an idiot. So there must be something I need to find out. I need to really understand what it is that you really deeply care about, because I bet if we follow that line down, you and I are actually very aligned about what we care about. It's just the strategy is ban abortion or allow women to have the free choice. But at the core, we both care about the life of a baby. We both are aligned, but we just never think that far. So I would say in society, children are being educated to know stuff, history, geography, science, maths, but we're not taught to listen and understand and really, it's really putting one's own beliefs, feelings aside and being objective and being curious. I'm working with a colleague right now to really start focusing on critical thinking. So emotional intelligence and critical thinking in today's society in Brussels, because we've got more and more of this artificial content coming through, which is coming from the internet, which isn't all correct.
It's not?
Right? And it's like, and so then they kind of package this, and it sounds really smart, the way that whichever software you use gives it to you. And I use it a lot, but it gets stuff wrong. It's very, very subtle. So in fact, I would say if you want to win in society today, you need to be super smart and really, but curious and constantly questioning everything, because the stuff you're getting through is nonsense.
I would actually make a distinction here, because online is a very strange environment. It's very, very different from a face-to-face environment because of its speed. Also because it's like in the arena, in the Colosseum, where you basically debate with people, but there are a lot of onlookers. You have the audience, and you often play for the audience, and you're not necessarily actually debating the other person. You seem to be debating right there, if you are into those kind of back and forth social media debates. In person, I agree with you. It exists on many layers, because if a conversation, or let's say a debate, we have, say, very different opinions about topic X. You and I can have a power game. I absolutely want to shove you down under the water, let you drown, and I win. Okay, that's a bit dramatic, but you get the idea, where I absolutely need to win, or the other way around. That's a pretty bad way of debating. Maybe not even it's a debate. It's a spectator sport, like in the previous example. A better one is yes, trying to understand the other, but that might be on the other end of the spectrum, because I'm trying to explore with open mind and good faith what you're saying, and you're trying to explore with open mind and good faith what I'm saying. And it needn't be a debate at all. It's closer to, again, like a therapy session or coaching session or something like that, where the number one characteristic of that sort of interaction is safety. And I think that's amazing, because you feel safe to speak your mind, because I'm not going to judge you. And I feel safe to speak my mind to the greatest extent, and you're not going to judge me. And I could say whatever extreme things, and you could say whatever things that terrify me, disgust me, or going back to those 5 primary emotions. But it's okay, you can say it, right? So that's one thing. But I think there is this amazing place between these two in the middle, and I think this is what you and I seem to lament that we're missing from Brussels, or just you could say other parts of the world.
I don't want to.
Okay, we're not level, but again, this middle space where you come with the safety of the environment, without the context, or without it's not a kind of debate where someone needs to win, but it's actually this genuine good faith, trustful debate. No matter how different the opinions are, it doesn't become an ego fight, and it is still a debate in the best sense of the word, and not purely, and I'm not discounting its value, but not just a purely back and forth conversation, exploratory conversation, right? So I'm with you on that, absolutely. So that's sort of good faith debate without trying to destroy the other person, but like you physically, you showed it, how you're holding the idea. You are there, I am here, but here is where we're doing that game.
That's right. That's what I'd love people to start learning, is detaching from things, ideas. They become the idea, and they become emotionally attached to it, and it then destroys debate, because if I say, I don't like that idea, I've just said, I don't like you. No, I didn't. But that's how people take it. And then they become totally passionate about, no, it must be this way. But then in that process of being passionate about that thing and how important it is, they lose, Sam Wilkins' word, nuance. Because maybe they are missing an angle because they're so blinkered that their way is the right way, that thing is the right thing. Right? So does that, I'm adding to your, I'm not disagreeing with you.
I agree with that. I just want to bring in a concept, which is identity protective reasoning. The concept is very simple. It's basically a reason to protect your identity, because the notion that we're debating, and that can be political, that can be religion, or any other, to say is, I don't know, are meetings good or bad in a company setting? Like you could be very attached to those ideas. So it doesn't need to be such a high level. But there is a concept to which my identity is attached. And the minute it's part of me, the minute we debate, but it's such a core part of my belief system or identity of who I am, or who I believe I am, then it becomes awfully difficult. Because no matter what you say, the minute you criticize it, and I point it, you criticize me. Right. Because it is me. It is part of me.
You've just told me I'm an idiot, or, it's bad. I'm bad. And then they go home and worry about it and think about it and go, oh, he's awful. And then it's just a vicious circle. The next day we have another conversation and there he goes again. And, yeah. And, I'm just reflecting on this conversation. And if I was watching this as me 15 years ago, I'm like, God's sake, Helen, it sounds like I have to be a therapist or a psychologist to even navigate work. And it's so lacking. The social skills of how to get along with other people is so generally missing in our education. And I've been picking things up as I go along, and this stuff we used to know. When we lived in a community, in a village, and we couldn't, and that was our daily work, we knew this. I'm saying I believe, I have to be careful, but we, somewhere along the lines, lost the art of getting along with other people and not taking things so personally, not taking things so seriously. Where did that go? I guess it went in the Industrial Revolution, when we all just became little machines working at and just learning the basics. But pre that, we were in communities and we self-managed, and some communities were bad, and sometimes they had leaders who were awful and controlling, and other times it was much more peaceful. But, you learnt to get along with people And time, I think the other problem is that we're in such a hurry. We've got so much work, so much hurry. We just want everything, just people do what I say because I'm just trying to get it all done. There's a problem there, I think.
I agree with you in the sense where those community spaces and that sort of learning. So when you talk about the school part, typically this sort of social learning does not happen in the classroom. It happens between the different classes in the break or in the sports activities, or it happens in the theater class or any other setting which is not purely learning, but is a social interaction through which kids can understand the dynamics. And another extremely important part is when there is conflict, and there's always conflict, it's not if, but when there is conflict, how is that being handled?
Thank you. Lord of the Flies, right? If you let kids just, so there has to be some kind of structural support in order to help children better navigate conflict, because conflict will always be part of our lives. And children are horrible. I mean, I was at an all-girls school. We were horrible. Our year was 28 girls, and we had tight bonds. But also, if there was something odd with one girl we didn't know at the time, something just very subtle, you know, you'd pick on her. I'm not saying I did, but I didn't necessarily stop it either, so I'm complicit. Then you find out later that she was, beaten up by her dad on a regular basis or something. We didn't know, because those things didn't exist back then, right? We didn't have social media. We didn't know. But, kids without structure are horrible. You need...
Well, adults as well.
Well, yeah, I totally agree with that. So, but there are good people out there.
To emphasize the importance of rules and a system, and it can be not ideal, it can be not fully fair and all that, but as long as there is a clear, transparent rule system around the structure, and that could be a school, that could be a community, that could be a workplace, as long as that is transparent and upfront communicated, at least that puts the guardrails and puts the orientation points according to which you can function. And when there's a conflict, then you know according to which rules that's going to be settled.
And we do the best we can with the skills and knowledge we have. And sometimes what teachers or adults put in place, is very in fashion and perhaps isn't the best one. And so kids don't ever, in some respects, don't deal with conflict. They just apologize and walk away. But you mean, so I hear you. So it's still so, I struggle to understand why in a country, for example, let's not talk about the whole world, but a country has a particular style. Why is it so difficult to instill some form of supported communication rules? I mean, there's a lot of intelligent people out there who've written a lot of books about great ways of dealing with conflict or getting along with other people, right? We don't have to make this up. I don't make any of my stuff up. I'm just literally stealing it from other people. And so, I find it odd that it still isn't a priority to get this helping children navigate difficult situations, listening, being curious, understanding before they start chiming in, having a sense of empathy. The human skills, and we're just so focused on education and maths and science and
in a restrictive, limited sense. And we need to talk about social media there, because with all its ills, maybe one of the most pervasive one is the speed. Because many of these things that we're talking about, the understanding the other, or the curiosity, or walking through or working your way through a difficult situation, it needs time. And in an online environment, time is completely lacking because it's so fast, and constantly the interactions and by the sheer number of people engaging on any kind of content is large. So everything moves very fast. So you don't even if you understand everything that you do, you can very easily be pulled into it because you just simply don't have that 10 extra seconds, let alone 10 extra minutes or 10 extra days to reflect, to think through, or to work your way through a conversation with another person with a very different way of thinking.
I think the worst thing you can do is try and defend yourself, because you're going to be more determined to convince me. I often get clients asking me, how can I convince somebody? I'm like, you can't. So don't try, because if somebody is determined to convince you, you're just literally going to be wasting your breath because they're not listening to you. And so you're just putting out, is it an opinion or is it a fact? I don't know. I mean, I think it's really important to know the difference between people get very attached to their opinions, but it's just an opinion. Versus, is it a fact? Is it evidence? Right? And if people are going, oh, that's not true, but it's like, well, okay, I hear you, and it is a fact, if it is a fact. But if it's about an opinion, people love to dive in on opinions. And I would personally, I would notice what you notice about self and about wanting to be in control. And just thank people for being engaged in the conversation. And you don't have to agree. You're not saying I agree. I recognize that there's different viewpoints on this.
My view on that is much better than arguing. Like you say, don't try to convince others and enter into these pointless fights, debates, especially online. Is speak your own mind on your own feed, channel, whatever it is. You know, this very podcast is about that, and it's not political in a big sense of the word. We do talk about so many things, but here it's our conversations. It's not trying to correct someone's wrong opinion, views, whatever they say. This is the place where we set the tone and we set the conversation and we discuss whatever is on our mind.
Well said.
No, it's advocating for your own. Well, channel is a big word, but your own way of expressing yourself instead of being the keyboard warrior and commenting on all these posts.
Yeah, who has the time to do that? I don't understand.
No, I mean, if that's what your heart desires, is set your own message and speak your mind in your own way instead of nonstop trying to enter into pointless debates where it becomes, like we said, a power game in the end. It's
and
winning.
I think people get very confused between a channel, an opinion, exploration of ideas, and they deem it wrong to believe in that religion or wrong to, and so it's kind of sad, really, isn't it, when you look at people who feel you're wrong. How are they in any position? You know, they've got this fixed viewpoint of their life, and it's kind of sad when people are so unwilling to understand why somebody has that particular viewpoint. So have these channels. I listen to much more long form. I'm just clinging on to LinkedIn at the moment in terms of it's a business platform and clients are there and people message me. I wish they wouldn't. Please don't message me through LinkedIn. So I've really gone away. I'm now Substack. While it's still intelligent, I know that's going to go downhill now that it's become very popular. So while it's got good conversations, good ideas, I don't necessarily agree with them all, but they're written, the people I follow are written by intelligent, wise, thoughtful people, and I find it really interesting because they make me think about stuff that I haven't thought about. But social media, just let it go. It's such a waste of energy. It's such a waste of time. And it's somebody's 1 second thought that they then shared.
Yeah, I think the long form has a lot of merit to it, like you say, and Substack is pretty good at that because whoever writes there, well, for the large part, and it's not about the kind of Twitter or whatever X like short posts, but again, the long form journalism, opinion pieces, analysis, you can find very high quality content.
You've got academics writing stuff. I mean, how cool is that?
Yeah.
It feels a little bit like Twitter in the old days when it
Or
first
Medium.
came out.
Medium used to be like that, no? The platform.
Yeah, I haven't been on Medium for a while. Has that changed?
I haven't looked at it for a year or two at least, but back then it was a thing because the whole idea there was long form content and sort of a structured, socially driven content sharing and community.
Yeah, yeah.
Substack is very good at that.
Is it our fault that it's so awful? Are we part of the problem? We use social media a lot, and I mean, I loved it. It was so exciting when it came out. It really completely shattered the traditional marketing model of big money being thrown at TV, and that's all we had. And then suddenly we could actually have a conversation. And back then, I'm sounding like an old person. I am an old person. Back then, it was, giants talking to little people, but everybody seemed to have a respect and hesitancy and a question of, well, I don't know. I mean, that's an interesting idea. And then the trolls started coming in. And now it just seems that because we have a screen and because we're faceless or we're allowed to say what we want, I just think it's such a shame. And now it's just this sort of noise.
Yeah, tribalism, noise, algorithmic bias, filter bubbles. I can throw in a lot of terms, but none of them make the platforms any better, on the contrary.
Yeah, so every couple of years, I then go on a search. I start sort of Googling to try and find the new platform that I could perhaps be part of. Or it's not for people like me, because it's probably for techs or something else. And because I'd heard about Blue Sky last year, and then I had a look at it, and I'm like, well, there's nothing here. It's just the same thing somewhere else. But is there somewhere, apart from Substack, is there something else that you...
No, I use it a lot, and I'm subscribed to like 50 different publications, from AI to geopolitics to all sorts of things. And I don't necessarily read all of them all the time, but very helpful publications, very good, even news publications now are there. So it's still very good quality. And of course, you go for the comments. Comment section is always...
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's interesting always.
Why?
Because it gets upvoted, and then you see what's...
Okay.
The crowd, what the crowd is saying, so to say. The crowd of that particular publication, which of course is a segment and not a generic view.
Yeah, so I stopped social media. That something happened in my private life, and I was on it until 2016, and then I basically got, what's the expression when somebody is searching everything you do and trying to find bad stuff about you? Stalked. I was getting stalked by somebody who really didn't like me, and I've never felt so vulnerable and scared in my life, because I literally spent 10 years probably up to that point, maybe even 50, I don't know how long it's been going at that point, 2006, 2004, yeah, let's say 10 or so years up until that point of putting my life out there. And that was I've never really got over. I did come back after 4 years. I started doing LinkedIn Lives, which was a sort of a statement. This is ridiculous. There is actually nothing. I probably did put some stupid stuff on one day, but you know what? Hey, that's also me. But yeah, I think it's an interesting. I felt quite damaged by. I mean, I was really. Yeah, I never realized how vulnerable I was until somebody then picking up and creating these connections weren't actually true and trying to make lies about me. And so I must admit, since then I've been quite nervous to show up.
Yeah, that I understand. I think these are amazing tools and techniques and everything. As always, the hardest is to apply it with your own loved ones. Because then it's just all hell breaks loose. all the theory, all the methods, and you're probably applying it very successfully with your clients or partners or others. But with your own family, bon chance.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
With those words, I'll ask you to please pull a card.
I'm going to read it. I haven't got my glasses. Okay. Ooh. So in what ways are you peculiar around money? Did I read that right?
Yes.
Okay. I hate owing money. I hate owing other people. I don't mind owing the bank money because I take care of that. But I hate the idea that I forgot to pay somebody. I can't bear it. I'd much rather buy more drinks at a bar than other people, just so I know that I covered my back. It's a safety seeking.
Why is that?
I think it's deep and traumatic. Money was used as a weapon as a child. It was a blackmail thing, and it put me into. It's a long story, and that would be another podcast. I don't want to make people. Yeah, so it was used as a way of control and manipulation. So birthday presents, money, and stuff like that, just very stressful. Gifts I found very, very stressful for a long time, and money. Like, I will pay you back. Owe nobody nothing. I'm not I'm not obliged, or what's the expression? I'm not. I just don't owe you anything on an emotional, physical, spiritual, psychological level. And I honestly don't remember if people owe me any money. But that's my peculiarity. What's yours?
Oh, didn't expect that. Around money. Wait, we'll take it out so it doesn't get repeated. That's a long story. Money is a way of for security. And the more insecure I feel, the more I want to be sure that the money is there for the family, for myself, for the kids, for everyone.
And how does it?
It's not a means on it, not an end on its own.
So what is it? Is it about kind of checking? What do you do, if I may ask?
Making sure it's there, and it can sustain the lifestyle and the life we lead. And when there is no money, or there is business-wise a difficult period, that creates a lot of anxiety in me.
Yeah, quite right.
So money is a tool, but a little overrated for me.
Yeah, but you can see it coming in, and that kind of...
And that's a reassurance that, okay. And it gives a lot of freedom. In case some trouble hits, or in case, I need a handyman, I need a lawyer, I need a whatever, then the money gives that freedom to have those.
I've lived for years without money, and when I was working with the homeless and stuff in Scotland, and I literally was living on income support. So I was working full time, but back then in charities, they didn't have any money. So you would sign on to chômage, income support, and work loads of hours. So which is completely illegal, but I do remember at the time recognizing that money brings choice. So the idea that if you buy a train ticket, if you've got £25 every 2 weeks, or however pathetic it was, the amount, to buy a train ticket is an awful lot of money. So you have to be there on time. So you don't have the choice of missing it. And that's a weird stress that comes in around money. Yeah, it's... So I have sort of... Yeah, so in some respects it's great because you just have you have to let go of all need of special clothes or anything. But then, and I was like, so that would be nice to have that freedom. And then when I did start earning money, it's like, ooh, this is nice. But so, it doesn't make you happy, but it does give you lots of more choices.
With that, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for asking. I think it's a really lovely idea, to not talk about the EU and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's I've really enjoyed your other guests, and I'm now absolutely a fan of Sam Wilkin.
Thank you. Also on his behalf.